Welcome everyone, this is Dan Weisberg and I'm the National Director for the TutorMate program here at Innovations for Learning. I want to welcome everyone to our year-end wrap-up call. We had a terrific year and you'll hear a lot about it. We have our Executive Director and Founder on the call. We have a CPS TutorMate teacher that we'll talk about. It's a pretty large agenda actually, so we need to try to keep up a brisk pace and leave some time for questions at the end. We expect it to take about 45 minutes overall. I want to just make sure that all of you know who your core TutorMate staff is. We'll talk a little bit about some terrific recent press coverage, talk about our new school districts and some of our new tutoring partner organizations as well, which we're very pleased with on both counts. Talk a little bit about some of the TutorMate changes that happened this year and those we anticipate for this coming fall. As I said, you'll get to meet a CPS TutorMate teacher, a Chicago Public School teacher, Perry Schroeder, who will represent all of our 175 TutorMate teachers by talking about his own experience, and he'll be available for your questions at the end as well. TutorMate accolades, in other words, some recognition for some of our terrific tutors and tutoring organizations, mention our timeline for the fall, and then open it up to a Q&A with our founder and executive director, Seth Weinberger. So let's get started. First of all, many of you know some of the staff already. All of you have been trained by Heather Kamenier, who is our national coordinator for training with Innovations for Learning. She's on the call and we'll be talking a little bit later on. Many of you have worked with Frank and or Carlos at the chat windows if you've needed some help during your tutoring sessions. So they are both terrific assets, and hope that you can get to know them better in the coming year as well. Jackie Davis runs all of our TutorMate deployment efforts around making sure that all of our schools are equipped and many of our teachers are trained. Any issues that come up, she will help resolve them in all of our TutorMate cities. Carrie Zakon is our Director for TutorMate Operations and is a key person to know and really make sure that the whole operations runs consistently week to week. I direct the program, but my primary focus is in recruiting new organizations, and we'll enlist all of your help in finding us new TutorMate partner organizations for the coming year as well. First of all, I want to boast a little bit about a terrific award which TutorMate, which we at IFL won with regard to our TutorMate program. It's called the Make It Better Magazine Philanthropy Award for 2012, awarded by the Make It Better Foundation, which is a very well-respected foundation here in the Chicago area. They awarded us a terrific prize, not a cash prize per se, but actually a video to tell our story. And those of you on this call, if you have not seen the video yet, you can see one or both of two different versions of this video. The first one focuses on TutorMate only and is available at tiny.cc/TutorMate. I highly recommend that you take 5 minutes, that's its entire duration, to see this video. It will really allow you to share with your friends and relatives about what your own experience is like. And then also, if you are curious about our second core program, which we call TeacherMate, which uses handheld devices with the kids in the classroom to improve their reading skills and reading proficiency, check out the second the second video as well, called which we call an overview video, tiny.cc/IFL overview. So both of these are great, and I want to say thank you to all of our friends at Chase and ComScore and Morningstar and Northern Trust for your terrific support in this video. Now, we received great press coverage recently in February in the Detroit News with our terrific new partners this year, General Motors. One of their tutors is Tracy Zettler, who you'll hear a little bit more about on the call in a few minutes with Heather. Great article. The hyperlink for it is noted on this slide, but all of these slides will be made available to you. I'll show you a link at the end so that you can download every single slide in a PDF, so don't feel that you need to scribble this down while we're talking now. Another great article was in Seattle at the Puget Sound Business Journal. The title was Corporate Citizenship, Tutoring Students Without Leaving the Office. Our friends at Starbucks and at Microsoft and at Weyerhaeuser were all interviewed for this article. We have quite a number of other partners in Seattle, and we want to thank all of them. Again, you can see this article at the hyperlink noted here. It's quite a great story. Many of our partners this year are new to us this past year. The ones in black that you see here are now in their second year. So a particular thank you to all of them for sticking with us and for growing many of your headcounts, such as AT&T and Bank of America and Boeing, etc. But the ones that are in blue here were brand new organizations that started with IFL in the TutorMate program this past fall, or perhaps even in January, February. We want to say thank you to all of you for joining the program, and we hope that you stay with us this coming fall. There's about 4 organizations on here that gave us the green light just within the last 30 days or so, so too late to start for this past school year, but we know that they'll be joining us this fall, and those have an asterisk next to them, and they include the Bloomberg Company in New York, the Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois organization, Quicken Loans in Detroit, and Takeda Pharmaceuticals here in the Chicago area up in Deerfield, Illinois. So we want to say thank you to all of you, and this list continues to grow. We had a great breakfast in Washington, D.C. this past week and a terrific breakfast in Broward, so expect this list to grow. You'll see a nice list this coming June when we redo this again, June of 2014. Our headcounts were terrific as well this year. It's a new record for us at Innovations for Learning. Almost 1,300 tutors were participating. We had very large headcounts in Chicago and in Washington, D.C., which are our 2 core cities where we've been running this program for a number of years. We want to say thank you to all of our tutors in those organizations, in those cities. Detroit, New York, Seattle all had 3-digit headcounts, so thank you to all of them. We just got started this year in Miami and in Denver, and also ran a second pilot in Oakland, so we had nice tutor accounts in all of those cities. Denver, I want to say particular thanks to Janice, which was our first organization in Denver, and we expect to grow from 5 classrooms in Denver to about 20 this coming year. We expect to add a number of new districts. Broward County Schools has officially joined the family of TutorMate and TeacherMate districts, so we're welcoming to Broward. We expect to launch about 55 or I think 57 classrooms to be exact this coming fall if we can hit the TutorMate recruitment levels that we need to. So all of you in South Florida, please help us expand there. We expect, it's not final yet, but we're expecting good word both from Jacksonville, Florida and Duval County and from Clark County in Las Vegas. So subject to final word in the next week or two. Look for very good news in those districts as well. Here's a map actually of the layout of our partnering districts. You can see, as I said, that we're all across the country from coast to coast. We're very gratified with this terrific support from our key major urban school districts, and we expect Oakland will be growing from its, I think we're in about 4 or 5 classrooms this year. We expect to move closer to about 40 classrooms, so there'll be a tremendous opportunity for growth in Oakland, and as I already mentioned, in Denver as well. Thank you to everyone in those cities. Now, if we really had our druthers, if we hit our ideal head count for the fall, we'd probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of 4,400 or 4,500 tutors. That's an aggressive number. We were at about 1,300 this year. So candidly, if we can hit over 3,000, we'll be very pleased. But maybe we can hit this number. And we need all of you to help us brainstorm and twist the arms of in a positive way, of course, encourage your colleagues at your offices to join the program for this fall. And obviously, if you have friends or colleagues who work at other organizations that are particularly larger employers in your metropolitan areas, invite them to contact us, because we do need to expand our numbers if we're to try to hit as many students, to really provide a tutor for as many students as we know the demand exists. Some of the improvements that we added this year for many of you, not all of you were able, but many of you were able to use the Join.me screen share methodology. That was a way to try to improve the certainty that you might have had if you were a tutor 2 years ago. Sometimes there's a little bit of doubt, is your student looking at this exact same story page as you are? And our traditional method, which is still available, and some of you do use that, doesn't always provide that certainty. So we decided to use a third-party solution called Join.me, coupled with our own ringing mechanism. And we think that for many of you, once you got the hang of it, certainly experienced a terrifically improved overall tutoring experience with your students. So we're pleased with the Join.me rollout. Those of you who aren't using it, are also using our traditional method, which also works quite well. Those of you such as the Coast Guard or Chase Bank or Bank of America. So it's not necessary that you use Join.me, but if your organization can approve it for internal use, we do recommend it where possible. We also introduced an RSVP system that allowed us to better organize our year-end student-tutor visits. With 175 classrooms, it's quite a challenge for us to try to micromanage that process. But with this RSVP system, our tutors were able to find out which of their colleagues were intending to visit their classrooms and could organize carpools and organize ways to roll out the activities and to manage the classroom activities when they were on site at their school. So we think that that was a terrific improvement this year as well. We also added some documentation for Join.me. One of them is a 5-step weekly cheat sheet, or a help sheet we call it. And hopefully, we didn't have it available as soon as we would have hoped in early November when we started tutoring, but we did have it available by early January, and we think that those of you who were able to use it found that the Join.me experience was a terrific help to you. If you're not sure where the help sheet is, this slide gives the URL or the hyperlink for that help sheet, as well as another help sheet on how to install Join.me. Again, you can download these slides later on, so don't feel the necessity to copy these hyperlinks down for now. As far as this coming year, we expect to roll out some new TutorMate enhancements that we think will further serve to make a better tutor experience for you. Number one, we want to try to improve what we call the tutor-teacher dialogue so that you feel a little bit better connection with your teacher and your teachers feel a little bit better connection with you as tutors. So to do that, we are going to set up in a more structured way, routine conference calls so that maybe about sometime in the second month of your tutoring, you would begin we would set up a conference call so that you could ask questions of your teachers. You would know a little bit about your students, having tutored them for 3 or 4 weeks, and then have a sense of who they are and might be able to ask your teacher for particular guidance. All of you, of course, can email your teachers. You're invited to do that routinely, but we want to have more of an oral connection as well. Furthermore, in some cases, we may have, for organizations that launch early and for teachers that are interested in this, we might set up a fall meet and greet or a student meetup session, and those would be for classrooms that get launched by, say, Halloween, by late October. But again, that will be determinant on both your own interest as a tutoring team and your teacher's interest in having that happen in, let's say, sometime in November or December. Then we expect to try to do a lot here internally on our back office processes to reduce the delay that might be there today around the time when we first notice that there's a technical problem with some equipment in a room and how long it takes us to resolve that issue. We want to try to do what we can to minimize that wait time and are instituting some back office processes for that. As we're growing the number of districts, the third bullet calls your attention to the chat rooms. At the moment, many of you know that there are other tutors that are in the same chat room you are. We're probably not going to eliminate that entirely this coming fall, but we will try to have a greater number of chat rooms. Maybe Carlos may be running one, and Frank will run another one, and we might even have a third if the demand grows, so that we can try to manage that process a little bit better. And finally, we want to have some advanced webinars for you, advanced topic webinars, so that those of you who feel like you know the basics in tutoring but have some additional questions around pedagogy, you could ask our chief of instruction here, our chief, really the director of teacher services, Michelle Pulver, about ways that you can improve your tutoring skills. Then we want to try to improve our ecosystem overall. This may not affect your day-to-day experience as tutors, but will help us run a better system that will be more attractive to teachers and to administrators. We do want to run background checks for all tutors. That'll be very easy. I'll talk about that more in a moment. We want to collect better data on your participation rates. This past year, we weren't always able to ascertain if tutors were not regular about their tutoring practices, so we want to do a better job at identifying tutors who may not be calling regularly so that we can call them and understand what the issues might be in that regard. We want to provide some of this data to our coordinators by providing online reports. And one of the things we've thought about doing, bullet 4 at the bottom, is what we call testing alternative tutoring models. Might it be helpful to try to tutor more kids in the room, for example? Or might it be helpful to provide 2 sessions a week to tutors, to particular students, that is, maybe from 2 different tutors? Still 30-minute sessions, but try to see if we can have a bigger impact in that way. So expect us to try to set up a few pilots to give us a sense of, is our current model of tutoring 10 kids, 30 minutes a week, is that the only way to go, or are there ways to try to tweak that might have a bigger impact? And to try to conduct some studies to give us a better sense of what our impact is, both with these alternative models and also with our core model, which, as I said, of course, is tutoring approximately 10 students per week, once a week for 30 minutes. As I mentioned, we do plan to introduce background screening. The company that we're going to use for that is YearEnd. You will be getting, when you register later on in the summer, you will be getting an email from Heather about contacting the YearEnd.com website. This entire screening will happen online. You don't need to visit a classroom or a school or a police department for fingerprinting. It's very low-level background screening. YearEnd will ask you for some confidential data like your SSN, your social security number, and your birth date. None of that will come to us here at IFL. I want to assure you of that. This company is trusted by about 1/3 of the Fortune 500 companies. This is what they do for their bread and butter. It's a very well-respected, bonded company that does this. So you should feel confident about sharing any confidential data with them and know that it will stay only with them. Some upcoming events and the timeline for the fall very quickly. Those of you on this call obviously know how to tutor. You are existing tutors. So for the fall, we don't want to put you through the entire 60-minute webinar once again, but we do ask that you attend what we call a retraining video, a short 20-minute tutoring video, just to help freshen up your skills. That'll be something you might want to do in October, probably the first half of October, to prepare for launching later on in later October, early November. Our registration will be open in mid-July. The URL for that is noted here, tutormate.org/signup, but your coordinators will be in touch with you about this, certainly. The big recruitment tends to happen after Labor Day because that's when people are back from summer vacation. So a lot of our companies do their aggressive recruiting in September, but those of you who want to be a little bit more casual about recruiting, certainly you can sign up as early as mid-July, as this notes. We will begin our online webinar trainings for new tutors. As I said, we have a big goal to reach if we're to try to meet some of the new demand for tutors across these 10 or 11 cities this fall. So expect those to begin in late September, around the 23rd, and then we'll begin launching our new tutoring classroom sometime around October 7th or maybe the week after. Tutoring never happens in September because that's the time when the teachers are trying to get to know their students and figure out which ones are most suited to our program. And then we will expect that these conference calls, as I mentioned, would generally happen about a month or so after your tutoring launch happens. So that would typically be in late November, early December. And in some cases, we might even have these meet your student school visits for those classrooms where this is desired on the part of both tutors and teachers. So with that, I'm going to turn over the floor to Carrie Zakon, who's going to introduce our special guest, Perry Schroeder, at the Chicago Public Schools. So Carrie, please take it away.
All right. Thanks, Dan. Hi, tutors. I'm Carrie, the Director of TutorMate Operations here at IFL, and I want to thank you once again for taking the time to be on this call. We are truly honored today to have Perry Schroeder on the line to represent all our teachers in the TutorMate system. He's been an incredible teacher for us this year. He's a national board certified teacher, and there's only about 100,000 teachers out of over 7 million nationally that have that certification. He's got a master's in education. And one final note is I wanted to thank the Chase tutors that were on the call today from his classroom. There are a few, Laura, Jeff, and Luann, thanks for being on the call to help support Perry. So hello, Perry.
Hi, how's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. Again, thanks for being on the call and taking the time. I'm going to ask you a couple questions. How long have you been teaching, generally and in Chicago?
I've been teaching for the last 20 years in Chicago, and I've spent my entire teaching career in inner-city, low-income schools.
Excellent. And you've mostly been at May Elementary for 20 years?
Yeah, I was at Hay, and then I moved over to May shortly after beginning teaching.
Excellent, excellent. So what are the most common challenges your kids face in their reading achievement?
With the majority of my students begin the year reading far below the national average. We test them within the first month. And as in the case of many low-income schools, the majority of our students start out below the 50 percentile. We want them to move up as fast as we can to get at grade level and then above grade level later in the year. Another challenge in Chicago and many low-income schools is chronic truancy. The Chicago Tribune reported last fall that as many as 19% of our kindergartners in Chicago are chronic truants. So the students coming to me, since I'm teaching first grade, many of them have missed quite a few days of school. So with these different issues, it's important to try to get them back on track and working at grade level.
Definitely. So how long have you been working with Innovations for Learning, either the TutorMate and or TeacherMate programs?
I've had both the TeacherMate and the TutorMate systems have been part of my classroom for the last 2 years.
Excellent. And did you have any influence on adopting the TutorMate program in your building?
Well, in my building, the second grade teachers are very jealous of me having the program, and they hope that it can eventually be expanded to second grade. I know my principal loves the program. He's visited often, seen the kids working with both the tutors on the computer and the TeacherMate program on the iPads. Our last 2 end-of-the-year celebrations, he's given our tutors May Academy t-shirts and gifts for them. And we see our tutors as part of the May Academy teaching family. They're a valuable resource in helping getting our students at and above grade level. And IFL has a very strong presence in the Chicago area, especially on the west side where I teach. They're making a great impact in many of our Austin, North Lawndale network schools.
Excellent, excellent. I like to hear that there are some jealous teachers in the network. It's one of the ways we grow. So what impact on the kids have you seen from the TutorMate program, either subjectively or objectively?
Well, subjectively speaking, the program first and foremost allows my students to read and interact with another caring adult for a half-hour a week. Not only do the students get to read with their parents and teachers during the week, but they have another caring adult who's investing their time in their academic growth. And I can't overemphasize the importance of this. I believe there's no greater resource in the classroom than the caring adults that my students have come in contact with each day. At my school, I have a lot of resources at May Academy. We have iPods, iPads, computers, smartboard, reading software. But the most important resource we have are the caring adults who work with our children each day. Objectively speaking, I think the program is designed around classroom data. It uses the data that I collect, and also TeacherMate collects data that I can use to help me make informed decisions. So when the tutors are calling in, the books that they're working with the students are at my students' own instructional level. The stories that they're reading are ones that they've been practicing throughout the week with the TeacherMate, so when they're working with the tutors, they can help build their fluency level. The reading data that I collected throughout the year showed tremendous growth in my class, and IFL and the TeacherMate play a very important part in that growth. On average, my students use the TeacherMate program about 20 minutes a day, and the TutorMate a half-hour a week, 4 to 5 days a week with the TeacherMate and 1 day a week with the TutorMate. So in a typical month, IFL is providing 8 to 10 hours of reading support for my students. One of the best stories I have this year, at the beginning of the year, one of the students that I had, she was extremely shy. In the first couple of weeks, I was worried because she got on the computer and did very little talking at all. But she was blessed with 2 outstanding tutors who faithfully called in each week, and it wasn't long until she warmed up to them. I could hear her reading and laughing while being tutored. And after each session, she had a huge smile on her face. Her eyes would light up every time the computer rang, and it was her tutors on the other end.
That's a great story. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, we think the tutors definitely have that kind of impact on their students. Is there anything, as a final question, anything you want to say to our tutor community that's listening in on this call?
Well, I'd like to thank the tutors I had first off in Chicago: Luann, Rosalie, Candace, Laura, Karen, Jeff, Amber, Heather, and Patty. And special thank you to Luann and Heather, because this is their second year working with the students at May Academy. And we teachers, we're just amazed at your commitment that the tutors make. I know it's not easy giving up a half hour of your time each week. You guys have your own business that you have to take care of. But that huge commitment that you make just provides very valuable support for our students. And it's such a delight to see the smiles on the students' faces as they're interacting with the tutors, playing the games during the tutoring session. It brings just not only a lot of academic growth, but it brings a lot of social and emotional growth, knowing that someone is listening to them and interacting with them. And we just want to say thank you for all the help you guys given us at May Academy and throughout the city of Chicago the last 2 years.
Excellent. That's fabulous, Perry. Thanks for sharing. Perry is going to stay on at the end of this webinar to answer some questions. So if you have some questions, just type them into the control panel, and we'll answer them a little bit later. All right. Thanks to Dan. Back to Dan.
Great. Thank you very much, Perry, for that. We have about 194 tutors. I just took a quick check. So all of you, thank you for sticking with us. We have a few more items to cover, and I'm going to turn it over now to Heather Kaminer to talk about our TutorMate Awards for this year. Heather, take it away.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Hi, everyone. Again, thank you for joining us today. As you can see on the screen here, we have just a couple recognition awards that we'd like to give out to some of our tutors. We wish that we could recognize many more, but for this year we just selected 2 individual tutors who stood out to us based on the feedback forms that you all fill out each week. So as you can see here, the first one is Tracy Zettler from General Motors, and she voluntarily tutored twice a week because her student needed extra help. And if Tracy ever called in and couldn't get an answer, she always made sure to reschedule and call back until she got through. And her persistence paid off in her student's progress. And then Dan, if you can go to the next one. So thank you, Tracy, very much. And the second individual that we'd like to recognize is Julia Martin from Weyerhaeuser in Seattle. And the level of detail in Julia's feedback each week was just amazing. Reading her feedback, it was very clear how much she cared about her student and also how much fun she was having with him. We're sure that her enthusiasm for reading came across to her student and helped encourage his own. So thank you very much, Julia. And then, other than individuals, we just wanted to recognize a few of our TutorMate employer partners from around the country that excelled in a number of ways. So from outstanding coordinators who exceeded their recruiting goals to teams with fabulous participation in the end-of-year school celebrations to tutors who worked incredibly well as a team. We have some logos up here. You can see Booz Allen Hamilton, Comerica, JP Morgan Chase, CBRE, Veterans Administration, Janus Funds, Weyerhaeuser, and Farella, Braun, and Martel. So thank you to everyone at those organizations for your participation this year. We really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you so much, Heather. Obviously, with about 1,300 tutors, we have had a lot of dedicated tutors, a lot of committed tutors, and a lot of terrific coordinators. So making the selection, as Heather said, was not easy, but at least we wanted to do what we could to recognize some that particularly stood out. We do want you to, we invite you all to really share your experiences with the TutorMate program. You can do that in 2 ways. One is you can just free-form, put some opinions or reactions or comments, suggestions on how we might improve, feedback of any sort. Just email it directly to us. You just heard from Heather, and this is her email here. It's quite simple, heather@tutormate.org. That would be the more informal way. We also plan to send out an online survey later this week to all of our tutors, and you'll have a second chance there to respond to some questions about your overall experience, and that will be very helpful to us. So please do take a few minutes, if you can, to fill out those surveys when you get them in your inboxes, maybe as soon as tomorrow, if not the next day. Finally, I want to, right before our Q&A, I want to turn the program over to Seth Weinberger to say a few remarks. Seth is our CEO and our founder and our executive director. He not only is the founder of IFL, but He also is the co-founder of a preschool himself, the Cherry Preschool in Evanston, Illinois. He spent many years as a practicing attorney, where he rose to senior counsel at the international law firm of Mayer Brown, and he's been a member of its global technology practice for over 20 years. And none of us would be here if it wasn't for Seth's terrific vision. So, Seth, I'm going to turn the floor over to you. Take it away.
Thanks very much, Dan, and thanks to everyone who has joined this webinar. I'm fairly impressed that nearly 15% of our tutor base has gotten on this call, on this webinar, to see what's going on and to participate. That's terrific. And I'm also glad that you all had a chance to hear from Perry. You know, you might not really get the sense when you're on the phone what impact you're having with that student, but what we hear most from teachers, what strikes me the most, is their reports on how students react when they sort of go to the phone or walk away from the phone. They are always just standing taller, smiling broadly, getting more active in their classroom. The impact is really much more than just whatever words you're working with them or stories that you're reading with them. So again, thank you. And as Dan mentioned, we are expanding. We're adding 3 important cities this coming year. We'll look to add 4 or 5 more major cities in the year after that. Our growth we're trying to make controlled, but we really do have as our mission getting to every one of what's called the Great Council of Great City Schools. Those are the largest 60 school districts in the country, and that's our goal, and we're probably about 15%, 20% towards that goal in just a few years of growth now. The one area that you could all help us with more, you the 200 most active people who have come to this webinar, is participating more at your company. All of the tutoring partners have coordinators, but I'm sure they could all use an assistant, a co-coordinator, whatever. There's so much more that could be done. Think of this as just the beginning of a platform that can be built on. On the one side, obviously, there can be so many more people recruited at your corporations or organizations, and the more you can get momentum started in the organization of promoting through flyers or posters or lunch and learns or whatever, the more this just builds momentum. But then even more importantly is the connection between the tutoring organization and the school itself. Having more people who take an active interest in coordinating things with the teachers, with the schools. There are other things that your corporations could do, whether it's coat drives or whatever. The schools need so much in terms of resources. And so what we've done is really just taken the first step of connecting a corporation with a school, and you could build on that incredibly. So I'm hoping that some of the 200 that are listening to this will be inspired to take a more of a management role in the future at their own corporation. So again, thanks to everyone. We really appreciate your participation. We look forward to another great year next year. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Seth. Stick around, of course, for Q&A. I think many of the questions that we're going to start inviting will direct to you, and also we have Perry on the line, as Carrie mentioned earlier. So Perry will be available to answer questions that you might have from a pedagogical standpoint, and Heather, Carrie, and myself are all here as well. So the way we will do this is via the chat box. All of you should have a little GoToWebinar toolbar, and there's a space in there where you can type in a question, and as the questions come in, I will read them off to Seth or Perry or any of our other staff. So let's start. Okay, so one question from Yvonne Miller says, who pays for the technology? Does our company? So on the TutorMate side, Yvonne, actually Seth, I'm going to let you answer some of these questions. I think they heard enough from me. So Yvonne Miller is asking, who pays for the technology?
We do ask that the corporations contribute to the paying of the fee for the computer that's brought into the classroom, and for the management. We have a staff that only manages TutorMate. But in addition to that, we do get grants from foundations, including foundations of your corporations, and we're very appreciative of that. We do not
Oh, I think we lost. The audio went out. Carrie, are you able to hear me?
I can hear you.
I am.
Yeah,
We lost
okay.
Seth.
So I think we might have lost Seth there. Okay. I think we might have lost Seth. So I'm going to try to jump in until he.
I'm sorry, Dan, the audio pulled out. Can you repeat the question?
Okay, no, then we lost you. You were answering that first question about who pays for the technology. And that's when we lost.
Oh, did none of my answer come through? I'm sorry.
The first part of it, but it did fall out in the middle.
Only to say that none of the schools pay for the TutorMate. It's all paid for by either corporation fees or by donations from foundations that are either education foundations or, in many cases, the foundations of your corporations, and we really appreciate those grants.
Great. Okay. Here's a question from Linda. How do we let you know? How do we let you know for certain? Where did it go? Of the skill sets that we might have. For instance, if we're bilingual, is there a way to let you know of that?
So there is a way in our system to indicate whether you're bilingual or not, and we do take that into account in finding you students. But otherwise, if there are other services, you might happen to be a speech pathologist or whatever, if you emailed that to Heather, she would see if that can be useful with our students as well.
Great. And I'm going to direct the next question to Heather. It's from Teresa. She says, can we tutor more than one child?
Yes. If you are interested in tutoring more than one student, all you have to do is just send me an email in the beginning of the year, and I will do my best to match you up. It sort of depends on the classroom and the needs, but we definitely do have a few tutors who tutor more than one student. So just send me an email, and I can try to set that up for you.
Okay, and Megan is asking, is there an opportunity to stay with the same student for more than 1 year? Seth, you want to take that?
At this point, we're still limited to a first grade program, but we are working on technology that will allow you to stay at least on an asynchronous basis, working with stories that the students have written and give feedback to, and do progressive stories, and we'll pilot that with a small group this year.
Great. And Donna is asking, it's a question for Perry. Perry Schroeder. Perry, you mentioned that high truancy rates are being experienced for kindergarten and first graders. Have you found a decrease in truancy rates related to those being tutored?
Actually, we haven't done any studies on that. Just the data that we had from the Tribune just was tracking the 19% of the city's kindergartens, but we don't have any data of those students who are using the program.
Do you have an anecdotal sense, perhaps, or not? Like in your own classroom?
I haven't really noticed a difference between the two numbers as far as those in the program, and off the top of my head, I couldn't give a good answer to that.
Great. Seth, here's a question for you. We'll be developing more stories and games for future TutorMate releases.
Yes, there will be more stories, in fact, in September, quite a few more. Probably about 30% of the stories are either being modified, updated, or completely new stories. There won't be any new games this year, but for TutorMate, we've added a lot of new games for TeacherMate, but there will be new activities in 2014 in addition to the ones that we have now.
Great. And that question, by the way, was from one of our award winners, Julia Martin, out of Weyerhaeuser. Thank you, Julia. Next question is from Kate. Hello, great program. Can tutors outside our company be recruited? I have a lot of friends that would love to tutor. I'll take that one myself, Kate. I think our guidance there is really if your friends are working for employers that might have, they might be able to organize their own teams of tutors, then the answer would be yes. That's really our major focus is full-time professionals, because those are the folks who really don't have too much time to participate in other tutoring programs. So that would be my recommendation. Have them contact us, but we don't really open it up to just individuals who might be friends of yours or family members. They should be working with an employer who is a sponsoring partner. Leslie is asking, how do teachers choose which students to participate? Seth, I'll throw that over to you.
We ask the teachers to pick students who are in the middle of their groupings. The kids who are too advanced, they don't need tutors, and to some extent we're using triage here. But there are also students who are so far away from grade level reading that they need more than what the tutor can provide. In some cases their oral skills are just too weak. Their ability to sit still for 30 minutes is just too poor. So we're asking for students who sort of need it the most and can also take the most advantage of it.
Very good. Perry, do you want to chime in on that? Was there was that the approach you followed in your own classroom in terms of choosing which students to get to?
Those are the
Go ahead.
Those are the guidelines we followed. We try to choose the students that are in the middle or below grade level, but not too far below. And obviously the ones that are already working above grade level, they don't need the additional support.
Great. Thanks. Okay. We have a question from Chantel over at Comerica, all of our friends in Detroit. I'm wondering how the students' reading level is established. I had 2 students this year, and they were reading way above the reading level that was assigned.
So there are pre-tests that are done in every school district around the country for first grade, and on the basis of that you get a sense of their initial level. Certain kids do move very quickly, so those tests are done in September. The assignments might not be made until November, and some students have really kind of skyrocketed pretty quickly. But all of the students are tested more or less with a same or very similar test.
Okay. Very good. And then Cheryl is asking, who would we contact if we'd like to take a stronger role in connecting our organization with our assigned school? And Cheryl, I'll mention that really would be Heather, who you heard from on this webinar. Heather is really the main contact for all of our tutors to ask questions, and then she can work with our teacher coaches. Most of these schools have teacher coaches that we work with, and we'd be happy to try to see if we can arrange a stronger connection. One of the vehicles for that, as I said earlier, may be a fall visit. So if you can have a team of tutors organized in, let's say, by late October, we might try to invite your team to visit the classroom sometime before Christmas, as well as at the end of the year in May and June, as they traditionally are invited to do at the present. The next question is from Saren, and she writes, I love working with my student and would love to continue working with her. Does IFL have any plans to have tutors continuing to work with the same students as they move on to second grade? Seth, I know you answered that question a moment ago. Anything to add there?
No, same answer. We hear this from a lot of tutors. We definitely want to try to accommodate that. Obviously, we want you to all start again with a new first grader, because these first graders need the work so much. But we think there are ways, opportunities, using the internet to stay connected with your student, and that's what we're working on right now.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. And I would underscore that too, that our primary, first grade is such a critical grade from a reading standpoint. So we don't have the luxury here yet of having so many tutors that we can fill all of our first grade demands. The idea is to first, see if we can help our students in first grade, and then, as Seth said, if we can help you in second grade stay with your students in second grade, that would be a terrific bonus, and we are. Stay tuned for more word on that. Okay. By the way, we have a bunch of more questions, but the rest of the session will be devoted to the Q&A. So if you do need to leave at this point, that's okay. Certainly, I want to say thank you to everyone for participating thus far, and we will stick it out to answer some more questions, but don't feel obligated to stay on the call, given the fact that we just promoted this as a 45-minute event. Kinga asks, the coordinator at our office left the company and did not leave any information in regards to IFL. Who should I reach out to with new contact information? Kinga, that would be, just drop a note to me if you would, directly at dan@tutormate.org. Joanne asks, I work for Chase in Delaware and live in Maryland. Are there plans to add schools in these states? Joanne asks that. Seth?
I'm sorry, which state are we talking about?
She lives in Maryland and works for Chase in Wilmington, Delaware.
Yes, so both the Wilmington area and the Baltimore area are very much on our sights for future expansion, hopefully very soon.
And then John asks, is it possible to receive feedback from the individual teachers about successes or opportunities that would help strengthen their students' reading levels? Heather, do you want to attack that one?
As far as feedback from the teachers, we're trying to, encourage the teachers to have more contact with tutors. Some teachers do have a lot, such as Mr. Schroeder, and they will email and send messages. Other teachers, not quite as much. But if you ever reach out to your teacher and you don't get a response, you can always send me an email, and we will try to reach out to the teacher ourselves to see if we can get an answer for you. So always just let us know if you're not getting the response that you want.
Thanks. And then Patricia is asking, how do schools learn about the TutorMate program? Can we alert schools to this? Can we sort of help evangelize how this works, not only within our companies and potential volunteers, but also to schools that we might think would be in need?
So in the districts that we serve, the 11 districts, it is pretty much up to the district who participates. They're trying also a form of triage to get to the most needy schools. But if you work with a school already, or if you're close to a school and you want them to participate, you can certainly let us know, you can let the school know, and we can ask the district if that school can be added. In many cases, either the school will be added that year or in a future year. If you're talking about a school outside of the 11 cities that we're in, at this point, I think the best is just to let us know that you have a relationship. Maybe your organization has a major installation there or whatever, and we can keep that in mind. But we really don't want to work with a single school or a couple of schools in a district. We want to go in a significant way through the district level support.
Thank you. Kate asks, so many stories use words or storylines that many children may not know. Is there a plan to review these stories, or do you need writers to help you do this?
Yeah, so that is actually one of the things we've been working on this spring and into the summer. Is a number of the stories were too complex for the level that the students were on, and we hired an expert firm. This is all they do practically is editing and leveling stories for young students. So you'll see a lot of changes in that regard in September.
Thank you. And then Zanita asks, with the recent school closings in Chicago, were any of the schools participating this year affected? I know the answer is yes. Seth, do you want to elaborate?
Yes. Some of the schools have been affected, but in many cases, of course, the students have been transferred to another school that we already participate in. So we haven't gotten a final count yet, but my guess is that almost every classroom of students will still be in our system next year. It's just they might be physically at a different building than they were before.
Great. Next question is from our wonderful coordinator over at, from our friends at MetLife, Debbie Taylor. Debbie asks, do you have any ideas, and Carrie, I think I'll send this to you, do you have any ideas on effective ways that we can increase our tutor participation within our company?
Well, good question, Debbie, and there are always good ways to increase tutor participation at each of your companies. I will definitely work with you individually, besides flyers and posters and hopefully word of mouth. I think we'll do a more focused effort this year on team building over there, so to get your tutors that had great years to talk it over, but to have more coffee clatches and to watch the webinars together and maybe do some internal promotion that way. But we will definitely brainstorm on good, effective ways to increase those numbers for you.
And this is Seth. I might add that there's no harm in any of you sending a letter to your CEO or other business leader just describing how good an experience this has been for you and in your belief for the organization. It may make a big impact to them to hear from their own employee base about something that they've provided to their employees that is working and is making it a better place and even a better world. And, you know, the participation or interest of somebody high up in the organization can make a big difference in recruitment, obviously.
Excellent, excellent point, Seth. Thanks. And I'll chime in with one final point, which is the video that we mentioned at the beginning of the call too, which is a 5-minute video. It's about the best thing I think that we've really done ever, certainly in a few years, to really promote the both on a cognitive level, on an intellectual level, how the TutorMate program works, but also on an emotional level, it appeals to you quite effectively that way. So if you can simply get a senior executive, as Seth mentions, to just watch that video, you'll find that doors will start to open more effectively within your organization and a new organization. So leverage that 5-minute video. Saren asks, we have about 6 more questions here, it looks like. Saren asks, according to feedback from teachers, was a general consensus that the tutors made a difference in helping their students improve?
We haven't had the survey yet for this year completed, I don't think, or tabulated, but in prior years it's been overwhelming, the teachers' response to that kind of question, that they believe the tutors have had a fundamental impact on their students' reading abilities.
Thank you. Perry, is that your own sense as well from a subjective perspective? You have that sense?
Definitely. Last night when I was watching the Blackhawk game, they had the extra skater come on and they scored that goal, and it's kind of like the tutors in my classroom. They're kind of like that extra skater. They give us that extra push to move these kids ahead.
Thank you. Donna Joshi asks, when I call my student, I always hear the teacher teaching to the class. Is the student missing instruction time, I think is the question, while attending tutoring? Jeff?
And the teacher decides when, obviously, the tutoring is going to happen. That's the schedule that you see. So the teacher tries to block out parts of the day when she really doesn't want somebody interrupted, like core math time or something like that. So the worst of the potential interruptions are blocked out. It doesn't mean that there aren't other times when you're calling when there isn't something important, and that may be one of the reasons sometimes that no one answers the phone is because something crucial is happening in the classroom and can't be interrupted. But by and large, the teachers have set this up in their own schedule so that they are okay with the student being pulled out for those 30 minutes.
Great, thanks. Let's see. We're about near the end. I do want to try to keep it to an hour because we are going to record. We have recorded this and we want to allow people to play it back. I don't want to exceed an hour, but I've got 1 or 2 more. Ketra asks, are you looking to tutor in other subjects in the future? And then Dana asks, what about Philadelphia schools? Dana's a terrific asset to us with Microsoft in the D.C. area. Seth, you want to tackle those 2?
Yeah, so Philadelphia is also in our radar screen simply because it's proximity to the other places that we already are, and we've had a few conversations with them there. In terms of other subjects, that's much further down the road. There's a huge amount of work still to be done in literacy, and that's our focus.
Okay. And then one last question asked about would we ever be given a student who has a learning disability such as dyslexia or ADHD? I think learning this information about the student would help us meet the needs of our students. Seth, did you hear that question? I think we lost Seth on that one. Heather, do you want to take that?
Sorry, is the question whether we would work
Yeah.
with those students?
Yes, it's sort of a two-part question. It's would they have a student who has a learning disability?
Okay.
And then if
so that's not typically the students that we work with, but we have had a few teachers occasionally who would like those students to be tutored, and if that happens, we do make it a point of letting the tutors know that your student has a learning disability, and we try to give you any information that the teacher's given us. So again, we just try to relay any information, and that would be something that would be strengthened maybe in those conference calls with the teacher as well.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. That's all.
Hey, Dan,
yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, but Pamela Harris had a question in the very beginning that we didn't get to, and I know she was waiting.
Oh, please, by all means, yes. I think, go ahead, Heather. What's the question?
Okay, I'll read it out, and then whoever wants to answer it. Her question says, last year we spoke about the noise in the background when reading with the students, and this year we also had issues with the teachers yelling while conducting class. Is there anything we can do about this?
This has been an ongoing problem for the 7 years that we've been doing this. We try periodically to get to the teacher to let them know that they need to keep the volume down when a tutoring session is in place. We've given students placards to put up to say, gee, it's getting noisy in the classroom. I think most teachers get it, but certainly if it's a first-year teacher with our program, it takes a little while for them to get it. And there are a few classrooms where it's just noisy all the time. That's just the nature of that classroom. We work with you, the tutor organizations, to determine if there's really nothing that can be done with that classroom, whether we need to swap out. There are a few classrooms that this doesn't work, this program, just like there are some kids that this program just doesn't work with. So we try to pay attention to it, we try to remediate it, but if it doesn't get remediated, then we're open to changing it to a teacher where this program will work.
Great. Okay. Thank you. I think there were a few other questions, but some of those individuals have left the webinar because we are well past our allotted time. So thank you, everyone, once again, not only for joining the webinar today, but for your support for this program throughout the year. It's been really gratifying to all of us here at IFL for the growth in the TutorMate headcount and just for the individual comments that all of you share throughout the year. And obviously, you know, the biggest beneficiaries are your students, and I know from what we're hearing that they're moving ahead in substantial ways due to your support. So have a great summer. Do start to think about registration sometime after July 15th and more aggressively in September. And there will be a replay of this webinar as well. We'll send that out to everyone that registered with the replay hyperlink. And you can download just the PowerPoints at the URL that you see at the bottom of this screen. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you once again for participating. We're going to terminate the webinar at this point. Thank you once again.